In the last few weeks, South Africa have used Simon Harmer, Vian Mulder and Marco Jansen at number 7 in their batting lineup. It's not exactly Adam Gilchrist, is it? In fact, weirdly enough, 4 of the 5 highest run scorers in number 7 in the history of cricket have been Australian wicketkeepers. There are 2 South Africans on this list as well, and one of them is current South African coach, Mark Boucher. But of recent times, South Africa's number 7s have not been very good, and that is by design. Harmer is not a test number 7. In fact, he's not even a first class number 7. Throughout his entire career, he's batted there only a small amount of times. He's a solid number 8. And when he has batted at number 7, generally hasn't gone that well. And yet here are South Africa in a test trying him there. And if this was a one-off, that would be something. But for a long time, South Africa has been trying players who clearly aren't number 7s in that position. Probably since the start of 2014.
This is the last knock. My dad told me to say this.
And that isn't really an accident. That is when Jacques Kallis retired. And since then, South Africa have been in this weird place of trying to replace one of the least replaceable players in the history of cricket. I don't know who the shortlist is, but you'd have probably Shane Warne, Garfield Sobers, Don Bradman, Imran Khan in your top 5, right? And probably Kallis. And you could maybe replace his batting, not in one person, but maybe across a couple of really good high-performing players. They don't really have that. But even if they did, the chances are that if they replaced this batting, they wouldn't actually be able to find one of the best 5th or even 4th bowling options ever. And so South Africa have cycled through a few all-round options, and that's fairly normal. Going through their history, they've always produced all-rounders, and they believe that they are almost part of their identity at this point. But they just haven't had one that will stick. The players who were supposed to help after Kallis just haven't quite been up to it. Ryan McLaren, Robin Peterson, Stiaan van Zyl, Vian Mulder, Dwayne Pretorius, and Ndili Pethlequayo, Chris Morris, and Senyoram Muthusamy. I probably also missed a few names in there. And I think that list has some very high quality cricketers there. But none are obvious test match all-rounders. And that is what we've seen from their performance in the near decade since he left. And so that leaves South Africa with a couple of options. The most obvious one that many teams will try is to go back to a more classical test formation of 4 frontline bowlers and 1 keeper and 6 specialist batters. Perhaps with someone like Aidan Markram or Dean Elgar to bowl some of the dog overs for them. Or they can do that thing that you usually don't see much in test cricket and go into games with 5 frontline bowlers, 1 keeper and 5 specialist batters. That option is fairly rare in test match cricket, and it is hard to work out just how many times South Africa have chosen that option altogether without combing every available scorecard. So I only did the previous 23 tests just to check, and you can see that the all-rounder gambit is still their most played. But when they ditch that, they're almost a 50-50 shot of going in with a classic lineup as they are with a risky bowler-heavy one. There really aren't many other teams in world cricket that try this, outside of the odd one-off when things are falling apart. Most of the 5-man bowling attacks in the world are through all-rounders. England and India have Stokes and Jadeja to help, and also have other all-rounder options around them at times. Australia finally found Cameron Green, and Jason Holder has been promoted up the order to give West Indies their 5th bowler. Fahim Ashraf has done it for Pakistan from time to time, and New Zealand have used Colin de Granholm and occasionally Mitch Santner. It's perhaps in Ashraf or Santner that you start to see the closest to what South Africa are doing. Ashraf has batted pretty well in tests. In fact, he currently averages more there than he does in the first class game. Sadly, his bowling though hasn't quite translated over, meaning Pakistan have never really fully committed to him. Santner has been tried as high as 6 for New Zealand. Seems fun, doesn't it? Despite averaging over 25 in tests. Even more fun. And you would think that maybe this has happened a lot in Asian conditions because he's a spinner, but actually when you look at his record when he's batted up the order, he's kind of done it everywhere. He even batted 6 in Adelaide. And New Zealand might actually be the best team to compare to South Africa, as I think that both are historically all-rounder dependent nations, so they probably prefer the idea of having 5 frontline bowling options. And it's quite clear that having a great all-rounder helps in your team. The dream is for a player to bat in your top 6, which allows you for an extra bowler while still having 4 other frontliners available to you. But it is worth remembering that the 2 greatest teams in Test match cricket history were 4-man bowling lineups. So, I don't know, that's something. There is something wrong in the cricket world, and while it may not be a conspiracy, there does seem to be a movement towards leaving more grass on the wicket, and thusly, the global batting average has dropped. If a similar thing has happened to you in your personal life, try Manscaped. Their Lawnmower 4.0 will help you trim any unwanted pubic grass. And once your downstairs track is taken care of, you can also use Manscaped's liquid formulations. So before heading outside, use the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant to stay cool in the heat. And if you've been playing too many games recently and you need some help with your strip, why don't you go and get their Crop Reviver? I think I may possibly have taken all of this analogy too far. But the point is, Manscaped sells items that allow you to shave your pubic itch pitch. Use the code REDINKA, all one word, which is the name of my podcast, and you can get a 20% discount and free worldwide shipping while you curate your special strip like a team of sweaty men hoping it doesn't rain. But South Africa clearly want that fifth bowling option, and they are willing to go after it stronger than most teams in the world would. And you go through their post-Callis history, and there are some interesting names here. Vernon Philander did it quite a few times, and while Big Vern could hit, he averaged 24 in tests and 26 in the first class game. He was a handy number 8, but they just, threw him right up there. George Linder was their spinning all-rounder. He never played that much test cricket, but he was batting at number 7 when he did. Linder's two major positions in first-class cricket are 7 and 8. That means that at best, that means he's probably not a test number 7. I mean, it definitely means that. Marco Jansen has batted there on this tour. Well, he was supposed to be actually batted at number 6 in one game, but it's a long story. But he has batted at number 7 a few times against India as well. He currently has a first-class average of 23 with a bat. And you watch him when he's out in the middle, like he was at the Oval, and you can see the obvious talent there, like when he on drives Ollie Robinson absolutely effortlessly for 4. Of course, the ball before that, he was hit by a short one because he is a ginormous praying mantis trying to hold a bat and work out how to do this. And the truth is that there is some talent there, and he might one day be an all-rounder. I mean, I don't quite see it. I just think there's too many moving parts in his body. But he also hasn't had a chance to develop yet. Most of his first-class cricket, he's batted at number 8. And he's not played much first-class cricket. And he's not made many runs as well. So the chances of him regularly helping your team when he's batting at number 7 are as slim as he is. And then you have Simon Harmer, who we mentioned before. A career first-class number 8. And a handy one, to be fair to him. But there is a reason he hasn't gone up the order that much in a career of almost 200 games. He did actually bat quite well early on in his career, so there was always a potential there. But he hasn't averaged over 30 in a calendar year since 2013. And twice in that time, he's averaged under 20. And South Africa are trying to do that kind of cheat code thing, where you don't really have a strong number 7, but your number 7's a bit weak, your number 8's okay, and your number 9's okay, and maybe it all comes out in the wash. And when you have the kind of bowling attack that they do, and that's lucky because they are not making as many runs as other teams. They haven't quite given up on batting, but they've certainly decided it's not as important as some other sides have. Now, part of this is just because they can't find anyone to do it. Their current batting lineup has one player with 1,500 test runs, and then 2 tail-enders are 2nd and 3rd. Last 5 years, they have been worse with the bat than England, pause for effect, and only slightly higher than Bangladesh, West Indies, and Zimbabwe right down at the bottom. So they've been putrid. You could see that and you probably think, geez, they're going to want the best number 7 available. And let's just quickly have a look at the history of number 7s. It has been a weird position traditionally. First it was for all-rounders, and then as cricket started to change and become more specialist, it's where your keeper batter went. It's never really been for specialist batters that much. But as keepers have become better with the bat, because we've selected them because they are, the runs from there have come more and more often. And you expect your number 7 average around 30, which is what Fahim Ashraf has managed for Pakistan. South Africa have not managed that in the last 5 years. They have been terrible in terms of production of runs from that position. In terms of test nations, they have come 2nd last. And just for fun, I added them again on this list, but without the matches where Quinton de Kock was involved batting at number 7. And I did that for 2 reasons. 1, it was funny. And 2, because I wanted to look up how they were going with the traditional lineup. In the 23 times that QDK batted at number 7, they won 10 matches, drew 4, and lost 8. That's not really an inspiring record. They obviously did a lot better in the matches where he made runs. When he failed at number 7 though, they were dismal. And what about when they tried their 5 bowler combos? Well, they were marginally better. Be that with someone like Vian Mulder, who is at least nominally an all-rounder, although we haven't really seen it at test level. Their win record actually improves with these kinds of lineups. And as I've said before, when you take de Kock out of that lineup, they're averaging 15 at number 7. So they're essentially forfeiting that position. And that's with an already weak top order. But with a bowling unit that has so much pace, skill, spin, and variety, they're also just thinking, why not just back what you're good at? And I'm not sure it's been working, but I'm also not sure it's been a massive failure. And just a reminder, in case you've forgotten it from the start of the video, the man in charge of this South African team is Mark Boucher. And as I said, he's on the list for the highest run scorers at number 7 of all time. He's 5th on that list. So the greatest scorer at number 7 in South African history, and the 5th greatest of all time, has basically decided that batting at number 7 no longer matters for South African cricket. What a wild time to be alive.